much. Good morning and welcome to the program. It's glad to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Just to say that the middle name is Olukunle.
Oh,
thank you.
Beg your pardon.
Apologies.
Apologies for that.
Thank you.
All right, so we're talking about hypertension this morning, but before we even go into that, please take us through what hypertension is in a layman's explanation. What is hypertension?
So hypertension is a sustained raised blood pressure above the normal range. So we talk of range. So it's sustained and it is well above that range for a long while. And without care, without any intervention, that sustained high blood pressure will ultimately damage essential organs of the body, including the eyes, the heart, the kidneys, and then that individual may come down with serious complications, even the brain, and you get to see things like stroke or heart failure and the like. So it is that sustained raised blood pressure well and above the normal for that age group, for that sex, that we call hypertension. So it's not just a one-off spike in the blood pressure. It has to be sustained, and we have to measure the blood pressure repeatedly and see that sustained raised blood pressure before we come down with the diagnosis of hypertension.
Now, Dr. Phillips, when it comes to prevalence, right, where does Nigeria fall worldwide now?
Nigeria, because of our population, and then because of our situation. So in epidemiology, we talk about transition from infectious diseases to non-communicable diseases to non-communicable diseases. As the lifestyle of people changes, as they get more urbanized, as they get more exposed to Western lifestyle as well, then we have a change in the disease picture from communicable diseases. They were your TB, your malaria, cholera that's raging now, to diseases that are not communicable but are essentially lifestyle diseases, and one of them is hypertension. So we as a country, we're in that transition phase when we are beginning to see a spike, a high incidence of non-communicable diseases, including hypertension, including diabetics, neuronal degenerative diseases, and the likes. Because our lifestyles are changing, the majority are getting into urban region. They are assimilating different lifestyles. We are sedentary. We are feasting and feeding on fast food. So all these have cumulative effect. So now Nigeria is in a phase where we're having increasing incidence and prevalence of non-communicable diseases, including hypertension, compared to the West that have reached their spike, their peak, years and decades before now, because they started off on those wrong lifestyle earlier than us. But we are also itching up to that state now.
All right, thank you very much. Two questions I have here. The first one is, what age range or which age group is more prone to hypertension? Is it the teenagers, the middle age, or the aged? And also, what are the similarities or disparities between hypertension and cardiac arrest? At what point does it get to cardiac arrest or death, if I might say?
Okay, so like I started off, we normally speak in terms of a range of the normal blood pressure. And then, so you will typically hear 120/80, meaning the systole and then the diastole. So we measure two different values when we measure blood pressure. And we'll say just generally that anything above 135, 139, sustained over a long period, that's for the systole, and then a diastole above 89, 90, sustained over a long period will be a diagnosis of hypertension. But that has to be in the hand of a health worker that is well trained to be able to do all those matching. But if you talk of age, anyone above 35, 30, depending on the lifestyle. Now, that's what we're seeing. When you are in an agrarian environment and you are still, you are not in the urban setting, you are not exposed to the challenges of fast food diet, poor dietary habits, poor exercise habits, poor lifestyle, smoking, and the rest. Typically, we have what we call essential hypertension. Hypertension that comes up from that age 40 and above. And you really don't have any cause to identify and say this is the cause of this hypertension. So anything 40 and above, typically you have this sustained rise in blood pressure. However, there is a subgroup within hypertension space that is caused by some other illnesses in the body. If someone has a problem with the kidney, it may lead to sustained raised blood pressure, and that can come at any age, even in children. So we look at, there are other causes. What I'm trying to say is there are some ailments in the body that can lead to sustained blood pressure, raised blood pressure. And that can come at any age, come with any sex, if the underlying disease that will result in raised blood pressure is there. But generally, we talk around essential hypertension, which is raised blood pressure that is sustained if you are not doing anything about it from that age 30. And it's also a function of the medical history of the parents of that individual. If one of your parents had hypertension, then you need to watch it earlier. Yours may come earlier than even that age 40. If both of your parents had hypertension, then yours may even come quite earlier than that age 40. So it's medical history is important. Your background, family background is important as to your predisposition to onset of hypertension.
All right, the phone lines are also open. You can call us at 081-2182-0154. I'll take that again, 081-2182-0154. I think you did not get the second question. The second question was that the disparities or similarities between hypertension and cardiac arrest. At what point does it move from hypertension to cardiac arrest?
So any untreated hypertension, just like I said at the start of the session, once hypertension is not treated, it's not just cardiac, it could lead to heart failure.
Wow.
It could lead to kidney failure. It could lead to rupture of the blood vessel in the brain. And then typically we see, oh, this man has a stroke. It could lead to blindness. And I will give you an example so that people can really understand how hypertension do damage over a period of time. If you have a power source to any building, what you are at a higher level than the typical normal rate, which we call high voltage. That high voltage, at a point, you may not know, it may just be a very gradual marginal increase, but you see your bulbs are brighter, your equipment in the house are functioning a bit hyper, more active than you are used to. If you don't turn off the power source and you leave it, ultimately you will hear explosion. The bulb may burst. That is essentially the way hypertension also leads to injury. So you are having every organ in the body has blood vessels like wire lines supplied to them for them to be functional. And they have to have that blood supply at a particular rate, at a particular pressure. Hypertension is now a situation where there is the blood vessels that are conducting the blood to that organ are now stiff. So the heart has to pump at a greater power, greater force to deliver the blood. So and since every organ is receiving blood supply, if that continues for a while, that blood supply at a high level will destroy that organ ultimately. And if it gets to ultimately destroy the heart pumping blood across the body, because the heart also has its own blood supply while pumping blood across the body, that leads to heart failure.
All right.
Heart failure.
Where we are leading to is, solution. But before you get to the solution, you need to know what the problem is. So what is the leading cause of hypertension? If you can tell us that before you tell us if it can be managed and how it can be managed. The leading cause of hypertension.
Yeah, like I said, essentially, when you say leading cause, more generally, you really don't find a cause per se.
Is stress a factor? Is stress a factor?
I'm coming there. But we have what we call predisposing factors.
Okay.
Predisposing factors. Obesity, when you have excessive large weight and it's not controlled. Smoking is a factor. Alcohol is a factor. Lack of exercise is a predisposing factor. Your job involves sitting, and you add weight, you are not exercising is a factor. Smoking, like I said, is a factor. Stress is a sustained chronic stress is a factor. And irrespective of that, where that stress is coming from, your work, your home front, sustained stress is a factor for predisposing to hypertension.
So can it be managed?
Of course, hypertension can be well managed.
Give us some of the ways.
There are people who were diagnosed. Yeah, there are people that were diagnosed with hypertension 3-4 decades ago that they got it well managed. So the first, depending on the level, so the first thing we say is prevention is better than cure. So you get rid of many of these predisposing factors. Stop smoking if you are smoking. Maintain a normal weight range, which you can get to know with your basal metabolic index. Stop alcohol or limit it to the barest minimum if you have to. If you don't want to stop ultimately, avoid stressors. Avoid as much as, sustained stress environment. Avoid it. Things that stresses over a long period ultimately will damage your health. What I tell people is walk away from things that sustain stress on you, because your body is producing chemicals in response to every stress that you are exposed to. And if you don't quickly address it, those chemicals will work against your body.
All right.
Thank you. Early detection.
Dr. Phillips, sorry, we've exhausted our time, but thank you very much. We will definitely call you back at another time, to discuss more on hypertension.
Thank you so much. Very, very insightful.
Very, very insightful.
And we have been talking to Dr. Sunny Phillips.